Thank you, Tom. Tom, Peter, thank you very much for the invite. Much appreciated. It's a great honor for us to be here today. I feel a bit sorry for the audience. You know, we've had professors, we've had doctors, academics, and now you've got me. I'm very, very sorry, but luckily you've all come to listen to me because I speak the exciting thing of insurance. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me. Thomas asked me really to give you a bit of a different slant to this. I think that the insurance fraternity doesn't always understand this, and I think we need to change that, and specifically the components and the technicalities that we've heard today for the application thereof. I'm going to start off, and I'll share with you my... There you go. That's my agenda. I'll start with the notice. It's really a nice word to say in my disclaimer here. We insurance do that. Background for all our discussions, challenges in the retail market. And then, you know, what do we agree on? I think that's very important. What are all the common claims that we see? We'll go over the academic stuff. We'll go into more the insurance environments. We'll speak about labels. What do you need to be covered for on your policies? What do you need to be insured for? And I think that's a pending question. We've hinted towards that at the latter part of this conversation. We'll provide you with our insight of comparing covers, and then lastly, and I think this is probably where you're hinting to, Tom, is really what would be the agrochemical environment look like without insurance? Let's get into it. All right. So I'm not going to go through that, but I've done a lot of research, and a lot of the guys sitting here assisted me with this. Specifically, why I've done that is really to show you that I think we would try to understand from an insurance perspective how the workings of Rhizobium and other inoculants work. But it's not my expertise, and I think you need to understand it, so I'm not here to debate anything with you from a technical perspective. My expertise lies in the insurance field, and I would like to give you insight into that today. But as we go through this, you will see that I'm pushing the conversation towards the insurance side of it. So the background for our discussion is really that Rhizobium is a bacterial genus of gram-negative soil bacteria, many of which fix nitrogen. Nitrogen fixation is an important part of the cycle, the nitrogen cycle. Rhizobium species form an endosymbiotic nitrogen fixing association with roots of primarily legumes and other flowering plants. There are some critical realities though. From an end user perspective, the biggest misunderstanding in biologicals is that more is always more. The variation in the concentration of the formulation and the consistency of that formulation is significant. As we are dealing with aseptic conditions, our Rhizobium must be free of contamination. Numbers and quality in formulation is obviously critical. So the challenges that the retail space has, through our research, we've obtained simple challenges that various stakeholders in this market face and experience. Through the application of Rhizobium, the realization of the correct formula often seemed to be a challenge. I think many people have touched on that throughout the day. There are also fewer expertise and a shortage of technical background in this space. That's concerning. Constant development of a formulation takes anything between 3 to 5 years, and then you exclude the field work of that, and it becomes a very, very costly exercise. Limited local resources. But perhaps the biggest misunderstanding that we've picked up is around the exact formulation or the exact formulation requirements, and that is that two products are not the same. So, what do most people agree on? Most stakeholders, actually. That biological products are safe as long as there's adherence to the quality and keeping the standards as high as possible. Buy from credible businesses with an established reputation, preferably with whom you've had a long-term relationship. Stay away from the shortcuts and or the cheaper versions. If you have doubt, speak up and talk to your channel and figure out the problem. Be preventative. Now let me tell you, insurance guys like people that are preventative. We call it risk management. So it's always good to be there before the other guys are there. When you do crop repairs, reactively, the money piles up. You know that. Be proactive and apply rectification at first awareness. So, enough of the academic stuff. Now you either think, I know what's going on, or you think, oh, this guy doesn't have a cooking clue. But Google is brilliant, and Jonathan Etherington has helped me quite a lot. Thanks for that, Jonathan. So, what are the most common claims that we see? And this is throughout our market, and this is really what we've looked at. We actually have seen pamphlets that's been put inside boxes with the products. On the outside, there's no mention that was made that there's a piece of paper inside that box, inside the product, even if there was sufficient information on that. Nor was it mentioned anywhere in the box that there was critical information inside that box. Can you believe that? We had a couple of those. Different manufacturers. Quality. Are you supplying a product of high quality that meets the house conditions that the product will be exposed to? Do you have sufficient quality control before distribution? Is it transported in a safe manner, not allowing erosion on the quality of that product? Is it the right containers, containers that prevent that ultraviolet exposure that we spoke about earlier as well? Are you providing the client with sufficient guidance how to store the product, even if it's temporary? Does that product have a batch number on its containers for traceability purposes? And are you supplying a product whilst it's still within a reasonable shelf life? Do you provide guidance around storage to the distributor? Under what conditions must the product be stored? Is it first in, first out? And then, of course, the transport of the product. Is it in an enclosed vehicle, or is it the back of a bakkie? Does a guy stop over for coffee at his mate? Very important. And then lastly, and that's a very important point, ladies and gentlemen, as what we stand here, and I know the challenges around registered and unregistered products, but as a broker, I cannot advise my client to make use of unregistered products. I cannot do that, because there is no single policy in South Africa that actually will cover you for that. Labels. I really want to chat about labels. So, does your label include the following? Identification and product info, for instance. Does the label identify the specific type of inoculant? Does it detail the intended use thereof, for instance, soybeans? It may also contain the name of the manufacturer, the distributor, and any other product registration number. With regards to inoculant composition, it lists the bacterial strain or strains included in the inoculant and their concentration. This helps to ensure that the correct inoculant is applied based on the crop's needs and the local soil environment. The instructions for use. The label provides detailed instructions or on how to apply the inoculant. Does it include the recommended application rate, the timing, such as pre-planting, for instance, and the method of application? On storage and handling, does it have the instructions on how to store and transport the inoculant to maintain its effectiveness? For instance, the temperature, humidity recommendations, and again, of course, the shelf life. Around safety and precautions, I spent half a day yesterday at a scientist, and this gentleman produces all of these things, and this guy just said to me, he's not touching certain stuff anymore. It's as simple as that. So it may include safety warnings and precautions for handling the inoculant. Around legal and regulatory compliance, please ensure that the product complies with regulations, certifications, and of course, quality standards for safety and effectiveness. And I've put down there at the bottom in bold and in red. That means you need to look at that. It says that labels are more than communication tools for the consumer, but also serve as a form of a legal documentation that helps to protect the manufacturer and other parties involved in the product distribution. So, what are the most applied liability covers? And many of these you will probably sound familiar to you. The first one is general liability insurance. General liability insurance is what it says. It comes in different forms. The first one is public liability. It's all the same thing. You may have it on your household policy as public liability, or you can have it on your office policy. It's that proverbial for the stranger to come in and slip on the banana peel. That's what general liability is for. So it protects businesses against claims for bodily injury, property damage, or injury caused by your business operations. It covers legal expenses, medical costs, and settlement of judgments of claims that is accepted. General liability insurance is essential for businesses that interact with the public, have physical locations, or engage in regular business activities. Products liability. Now we're getting closer to home. Products liability really protects against claims that is related to bodily injury, property damage caused by a product that your business manufactures, distributes, or sells. It protects against claims arising from product defects, design flaws, or failure to provide adequate warnings or instructions. Product liability insurance is particularly important for businesses involved in manufacturing, distributing, or physically selling those goods. I put in there, and I had to do that for the insurance professional, you need to make sure that you speak to somebody that knows what he or she is talking about. There's a handful of people that really understand this, really to provide adequate cover and give you guidance around that. Lastly is professional liability insurance, often known as PI insurance. Professional liability insurance covers claims arising from professional services or advice. It protects businesses and professionals from claims or negligence, errors, or omissions that result in financial harm to clients or customers. Professional liability insurance is crucial for businesses that provide specialized services or professional advice. Now, this is a very important part of it. So what I've done in the next slide is really to show you the comparison between products liability and professional liability. And why that's important, that's one of the most questions that we often ask is, what do I need? Do I need products liability and or professional indemnity policy? Let me give it to you in such a way. The matrix on the board shows you what's the purpose. The purpose of professional liability insurance really covers businesses for liability arising from defects in their products. On the PI side of it, it covers professionals for liability arising from errors or omission in their advice or services. The guy on the floor, the person in the field, in other words. Who's the target audience here? Products, it's manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and of course the people that supply those goods. Whilst on the professional liability side of it, it targets as professionals that's giving services or advice. Typical, or a type of risk covered, and products, it's the risk of physical injury, property damage, or illness caused by a faulty product. On professional indemnity side of it is the risk of financial loss, reputational damage, or legal action due to professional mistakes. Where do we see the claims come from? Products liability is really claims typically that arise from products defects or unsafe products. On the professional indemnity side, we see claims that arise from negligence, errors, or omission in professional services, the wrong advice. Regulatory drivers. The products is driven by product safety regulations. There's a vast discrepancy here between the two. Driven by product safety regulations and customer protection laws, whilst your professional indemnity is driven by industry regulations, professional ethics, and legal requirements for professionals. And then before I go through to the last slide, now the last slide is an economic opinion, and I think the purpose of that is maybe just to make you think a bit around the insurance fraternity and also what the business would be like, possibly like, without the insurance fraternity. So, we see this as an increased financial risk for chemical manufacturers and distributors. Uninsured liabilities. There will be increased environmental damages like groundwater pollution as one. High operational costs. You will now have to put something back in your bank to make provision for one day if you have a claim. You definitely will pay higher interest rates because the bank's going to charge it. They see it as a higher risk now. Smaller companies may shut down. Smaller companies probably will shut down. Higher cost and limited access to agricultural chemicals. Farmers will face higher input costs. Increase in counterfeit or lower quality products will flood the market. Increased crop damage and soil degradation. The increased risk to food security is a given, and agricultural productivity as well. Low crop yields, lower food production, and the end user will pay more for that. Greater reliance on imports. Where there's a substantial surplus in the imports currently in this environment, there'll be a deficit like never seen before. Rising environmental and public health risks. Unregulated chemicals use will increase, not may, it will increase. Greater health risks for farm workers and consumers. Governments may impose stricter regulations, and speaking of governments and legal interventions will definitely be there. There will be pressure on governments to provide insurance, like Sazria, heaven forbid for that. More lawsuits in the industry, and then stricter compliance, as if we require more of that, will definitely be an order of the day. That's our view on that. That was my last slide, actually, thinking about it. And any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Okay, I never thought I'd see the day where a technical session would include insurance, Jacques. But I think that in terms of the ag industry and in terms of security, if your whole business doesn't go from A to Z, in other words, you start with production, then it's sales, distribution, and if you don't have the insurance component of it, you can find yourself in an extremely short street. And this is why today I thought it very pertinent, because 2 years ago, where your insurer says to you, listen, there's a possibility that we're not going to insure when it comes to soya and Rhizobium liability, you've seen what the ramifications of that can be in terms of an industry. If we lose this, then everything else rolls through, becomes more expensive, and it just doesn't become manageable. And it was on this background that I thought, you know what, I need Jacques to get in here, because the soya industry, if we lose this facility, I believe that moving forward would become very difficult. Margins are under pressure, farmers are under pressure. Where are the first places you cut? Oh, of course, insurance and or other inputs. And then you find yourself, and I was trying to explain to you earlier, 2 years ago when you got 40 or 50 farmers, and the only thing that's standing between them and bankruptcy is your insurance. And that is absolutely, that's devastating. And thanks to, the cooperation between the insurance companies, those farmers are still farming today. And Corno will even say to you, yeah, Tom, we didn't get to all of them. I understand. But Corno, you can understand the complexity now of what we're dealing with in terms of the questions that you raise. Biology is extremely difficult. And also when you say, farmers say they've done the right thing, they've done the right application, they put the right Rhizobium down, all the agronomic stuff is right, and you get the loss adjuster there, and then the discussion continues. You start finding things that you shouldn't be finding, i.e. wasn't stored correctly. It was carryover inoculant from a previous season. And if the insurance companies are going to have to start insuring against that, then it becomes impossible. You're going to start paying excesses of 500,000 to 1 million on each single claim. And again, that becomes unaffordable. But again, when you've got people like Grain SA that are looking after the interests of the farmer, and thankfully so, there's a whole story that you need to contend with. There's normally 3 sides to a story. His side, your side, and the right side. I know, I get it. Okay. So Jacques, thank you very much for your side. Maybe there's some questions. Every single one of you is touched by this particular aspect. Sooner or later, due to some climatic and or production, you're going to have some kind of claim. It's part of life. We understand. Are there some questions for Jacques, maybe? They're scared of you, Jacques.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Jacques, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.